What do you mean the bank called about a loan I didn't sign for? I asked, gripping my phone tighter as I paced our kitchen. There must be some mistake. Mrs. Reynolds, I assure you this isn't a mistake, the bank representative replied with practiced patience. Your signature is on the home equity line of credit documents. The funds were disbursed 3 weeks ago. How much? My voice dropped to a whisper. The loan amount was $375,000 against your property at 1842 Aspen Drive. The room tilted slightly. Our home, the Victorian craftsman we'd spent 5 years restoring, was worth nearly twice that, but the idea that someone had leveraged it without my knowledge made me physically ill. I need to see those documents, I managed. I never signed anything. Of course, if you believe this is fraudulent, you should come to the branch immediately. I'm Lillian Reynolds, 37, an interior designer specializing in historic home restorations in Portland, Oregon. My company, Heritage Revival, has built a solid reputation over the last decade. What I want is simple: the peaceful, honest life I thought I had with my husband Blake, in the home we've poured our hearts into. Standing in my way is an apparent fraud that threatens everything I've worked for. Someone has forged my signature on loan documents, putting my home and business reputation at risk. And the sickening suspicion forming in my stomach suggests the person I trust most might be responsible. Blake and I met in architecture school. While I focused on interior spaces, he pursued commercial development. We complemented each other perfectly, my eye for historical detail balancing his modern sensibility. When we found the dilapidated Victorian 5 years ago, we agreed it would be our forever project, a place to build our lives and eventually raise children. After ending the call, I opened our shared desktop computer to search for any financial documents Blake might have stored there. The screen lit up to his email, left open and unattended, something he never did. A message preview caught my eye. From Jasmine Winters, subject, closing documents. The condo closing is scheduled for Friday. I can't wait to see the look on. The preview ended there. I clicked to open it fully, but the message had already been marked as read and moved to another folder I couldn't locate. Who was Jasmine Winters? What condo closing? Before I could search further, I heard Blake's key in the front door. I quickly closed the email and turned to face my husband of 8 years, studying his expression as he entered. His smile seemed genuine, his kiss on my cheek automatic as he set down his briefcase. Hey babe, how was your day? He asked, loosening his tie. Interesting, I replied carefully. The bank called. Something about a loan. For just a fraction of a second, his expression flickered, a micro-expression of alarm quickly masked by confusion. In that instant, I knew with devastating certainty, things were far worse than a simple mistake. Blake and I built our life methodically, like designing a perfectly balanced room. We met in graduate school, bonding over coffee-fueled design charrettes and shared admiration for Frank Lloyd Wright. When we married at 29, we had a 5-year plan: establish our careers, restore a historic home, start a family by 35. The careers flourished. My interior design business thrived by word of mouth from Portland's historic district homeowners, while Blake's commercial architecture firm landed increasingly prestigious projects. Finding our perfect fixer-upper took longer than expected, but when we discovered the neglected 1890s Victorian, we knew immediately it was meant to be ours. We pooled our savings for the down payment with an agreement. I would lead the interior restoration, Blake would handle structural and external renovations. Weekends disappeared into stripping woodwork, refinishing floors, rewiring ancient electrical systems. Each restored inch represented our shared future. The family part of our plan proved more elusive. After 2 years of trying naturally, we underwent fertility treatments. The physical toll fell on me. Daily hormone injections, invasive procedures, emotional devastation with each negative test. Blake was supportive, attending key appointments and comforting me through failures, though he seemed increasingly distracted by work pressures. Reynolds Architectural has a shot at the Westbrook development, he explained during one particularly busy month. It would put us on the map regionally. I supported his ambition. often handling house projects alone while he worked late. The pursuit of both our dreams required sacrifice, and I believed we were in it together. Looking back, I see warning signs I chose to ignore. The unexplained weekend site visits that left no mud on his boots, the sudden password protection on his phone, credit card statements he insisted on handling personally, the decreasing physical intimacy attributed to stress and timing. I've always been the practical one, Blake often reminded me when questioned about financial decisions. Trust me to handle this part. And I did trust him, completely. When my design studio faced pandemic-related cancellations last year, Blake covered our mortgage for 3 months, waving away my concerns about repayment. "What's mine is yours," he'd said. Despite these reassurances, subtle shifts occurred. He began questioning my business expenses, suggesting my studio renovation had been extravagant. He proposed we delay our planned kitchen remodel, citing market uncertainty. When my sister Jennifer faced divorce after her husband's infidelity, Blake seemed oddly defensive of the cheating husband. "People are complicated," he argued during one discussion. "Nobody knows what happens inside a marriage except the people in it." The comment lingered uncomfortably, but I dismissed it as philosophical difference rather than personal revelation. When my business rebounded stronger than ever this year, Blake seemed both proud and somehow resentful of my success. "You've really come into your own," he said during our anniversary dinner last month, studying me with an expression I couldn't quite interpret. "Sometimes I hardly recognize the woman I married." At the time, I took it as a compliment. Now, remembering the strange distance in his eyes, I wonder if it was actually a confession. "I have no idea what they're talking about," Blake said, maintaining eye contact as he poured himself a whiskey. "Probably a clerical error. I'll call them tomorrow." I nodded, watching him closely. In court testimony I'd once heard, liars often provide too much detail. Blake was giving me just enough. Concern without over-explanation. Either he was innocent or very practiced. "They mentioned a signature," I pressed. "My signature." "That's impossible." He frowned, setting his glass down. "Unless... Remember when we refinanced last year? Could it be related to that?" The refinance had been legitimate. Lower interest rate, no cash out. I'd signed those papers myself at the bank. This was completely different. They specifically said it was a new HELOC opened 3 weeks ago. Blake's phone chimed. He glanced at it, then quickly turned it face down on the counter. "Well, it's definitely a mistake. Don't worry about it tonight. We'll sort it tomorrow." That night, sleep evaded me. Blake's even breathing beside me felt like another deception. When his phone chimed again with a text alert around midnight, he immediately woke and took it to the bathroom. The sliver of light under the door remained for nearly 15 minutes. The next morning, I arrived at the bank the moment it opened. The loan officer, Ms. Kemp, seemed genuinely concerned as she retrieved the documents. "Here's the application and approval paperwork," she said, spreading several pages before me. "As you can see, both signatures are present." My husband's signature looked authentic. Mine was a reasonable approximation but clearly forged. Certain loop patterns were wrong. The slant was too severe. "This isn't my signature," I said firmly. "I never saw these documents." Ms. Kemp's expression grew troubled. "Mrs. Reynolds, I processed this application myself. Your husband brought in the signed paperwork. He said you couldn't come because of work commitments." "And you didn't verify?" "Call me? Video confirmation?" "He's been a customer for years," she replied defensively. "And we did call the number on file to confirm." "Which number?" She checked the application. The contact phone wasn't mine, but a number I didn't recognize. "I need to know where the money went," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the roiling in my stomach. Ms. Kemp hesitated. "I can't divulge that without—" "This is fraud involving my name and my property. Either you tell me or I call the police from this chair." She paled slightly, then turned to her computer. After several clicks, she said, The funds were wire transferred to Northwest Escrow Services on April 12th. An escrow company, property purchase. The condo closing from the email suddenly made sickening sense. As I left the bank, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Viewing the property today. It's perfect. Thanks for making this happen for us. J. A message clearly not meant for me. J for Jasmine? I nearly called Blake to confront him, but stopped myself. Confronting him now, with only partial information, would give him time to construct explanations, hide evidence, maybe move the money again. Instead, I typed, "New phone, who is this?" and waited. The response came quickly. "Very funny, Blake. It's Jasmine. Still meeting at the condo at 2?" I stared at my phone, the final piece clicking into place. There was no mistake, no misunderstanding. While I'd been designing our dream home, my husband had been designing his escape, with another woman, using our home equity to fund their love nest. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling slightly. Part of me wanted to explode, to unleash years of accumulated trust in a volcanic text of rage and betrayal. But the designer in me, the planner, the visualizer, knew better. This required precision, not passion. I needed more information before deciding my next move. For now, I simply turned off my phone and drove to my studio, mind racing with implications and possibilities. One thing was certain. The life I thought I had was over. What came next would depend entirely on what I discovered in the coming hours. At my studio, I searched property records for recent transactions involving Northwest Escrow. Nothing under Blake's name appeared, but a pending sale to Jasmine Winters jumped out immediately. A 2-bedroom condo in Pearl District for $368,000. Almost exactly the loan amount. I needed proof connecting Blake to this purchase. Confronting him with suspicions would only yield denials. I needed evidence that would crumble his defenses, that would make lying futile. Around noon, I returned home, knowing Blake would be at a client meeting. Our shared desktop contained years of financial documents. Surely some trail existed. But when I attempted to access our cloud storage, the password had been changed. Likewise, our shared spreadsheets for household finances were suddenly not found. Blake was erasing his digital footprint. I called our accountant, Martin, with whom we'd filed taxes for years. "Lillian, perfect timing. I was about to call Blake back about the documentation for that investment property. Did he find the purchase agreement?" My breath caught. Investment property? The condo he mentioned buying as a rental. He called yesterday about how to structure it for tax purposes. Said it was your joint venture? Right, I managed. Can you remind me what he's already told you? I want to make sure we're aligned. Martin chuckled. Not much. Just that you two purchased a condo as an investment, but he wanted it kept separate from your personal finances for some reason. I advised against it. Married filing jointly makes that complicated. He said he'd explain further when he brought the paperwork. Thanks, Martin. I'll make sure he calls you back. So Blake was creating a paper trail of my involvement, establishing plausible deniability. If questioned, he could claim I knew about the condo all along. Desperate for answers, I drove to the property address. The modern high-rise contrasted sharply with our lovingly restored Victorian, all glass and steel where our home was wood and warm brick. I parked across the street, watching the entrance, unsure what I was even hoping to see. At precisely 2 p.m., a sleek black Audi pulled up. Blake stepped out, checking his reflection in the glass door before entering the building. 20 minutes later, a woman with long dark hair arrived. Athletic, polished, at least 10 years younger than me. She moved with the confident stride of someone comfortable in the space, entering without buzzing. I felt physically ill. While I'd imagined confronting the mistress would bring clarity, witnessing her existence made everything worse. She was real. This was real. My phone rang. Blake. Hey, I answered, working to keep my voice neutral. How's your day going? Great, actually. Client meeting went well. His voice contained not a hint of deception. I might be late tonight, though. Project deadline moved up. Another lie delivered with practiced ease. How many project deadlines had actually been rendezvous with her? No problem. I have design boards to finish anyway. That's my girl, always working, love you. The casual love you nearly broke me. How could he say those words coming from her apartment? When I returned home, I found an envelope from the bank containing loan documents. They'd been mailed to our home address rather than delivered electronically, likely Blake's attempt to intercept them. I now had physical evidence of the forgery. I called the bank's fraud department explaining my signature had been forged. They opened an investigation immediately, putting a freeze on the remaining loan funds, approximately $7,000 that hadn't yet been dispersed. That evening, Blake texted that he'd be working late at the office. I replied with a simple, "Okay," then drove to his office building. The lights were off, the parking lot empty. His car was nowhere to be seen. A small, irrational hope I'd been harboring, that there was some explanation beyond the obvious, finally died. When he returned home near midnight, I pretended to be asleep. He showered before coming to bed, likely washing away the evidence of his afternoon. As he settled in beside me, his phone chimed with a text. He read it, chuckling softly to himself in the darkness. I lay motionless, mapping out my next steps with architectural precision. The bank investigation would take time. I needed more immediate action to protect myself. First thing tomorrow, I would consult a divorce attorney. But not just any attorney. I needed someone who specialized in financial fraud. The lawyer's office was understated. No pretentious mahogany or leather chairs, just clean lines and practical functionality. Diane Harper had come highly recommended for her expertise in divorce cases involving financial deception. Unfortunately, what you're describing is more common than you'd think, Diane said after I explained my situation. Spouses hiding assets, taking loans, even stealing identities. What are my options? I asked. First, we document everything. The forged signature gives us leverage. That's criminal fraud. But we need to move quickly to protect your assets and credit. She outlined a strategy. File for legal separation immediately to limit further financial damage, gather evidence of the affair and fraud, and prepare divorce proceedings. But her next statement sent ice through my veins. You should know that if the bank investigation proves the signature is forged, they'll likely press criminal charges. Your husband could face jail time. The thought of Blake in prison should have been satisfying, but it was simply another layer of surreality. The man who'd held my hand through failed fertility treatments, who'd spent weekends restoring crown molding in our home, could be led away in handcuffs. I don't necessarily want him in jail, I admitted. I just want to protect myself and get out of this marriage with my finances intact. I understand, but the fraud wasn't just against you. It was against the bank. That part may be out of your hands. I left with a folder of paperwork to complete and instructions to gather financial documents. As I reached my car, my phone buzzed with an email notification from our joint credit card. Your statement is ready to view. I opened it immediately. Among the usual expenses was a charge I didn't recognize, $4,300 at Cartier. The date coincided with my weekend workshop in Vancouver 2 weeks ago. He'd bought her jewelry, expensive jewelry, while I was out of town, using our joint credit card, which I helped pay. The casual arrogance of it struck me like a physical blow. When I arrived home, another shock awaited. Blake had sent a text. Surprise! Booked us a weekend at the mountain cabin. Leaving Friday. Need to reconnect. The mountain cabin, a rental we'd visited several times, had been the site of some of our happiest memories. His sudden desire to reconnect made no sense alongside his ongoing affair and financial deception. Unless he suspected I knew something. This could be damage control, an attempt to placate me while he covered his tracks. I typed a non-committal response. Sounds nice. Let me check my schedule. That evening, Blake arrived home with takeout from my favorite Thai restaurant and a bouquet of lilies. His attentiveness felt calculated, each smile a performance. I've been thinking, he said as we ate. We've both been so busy lately. The cabin will be good for us. I nodded, watching him closely. What prompted this suddenly? Just realized I've been neglecting what matters most. He reached for my hand. You, us. The performance was flawless. Concerned husband reconnecting with his wife. Had I not seen him at the condo with Jasmine, had I not discovered the loan and credit card charges, I might have believed him. As he washed dishes, his phone buzzed on the counter. The notification preview appeared briefly. Miss you already. Friday feels so far. Blake quickly grabbed the phone, typing a response before tucking it in his pocket. His expression never changed, not even a flicker of guilt. That night I couldn't sleep. Blake's sudden attentiveness, the cabin getaway, the mountain of evidence. It was all connected somehow. Was the cabin trip genuine remorse, or was something more sinister at play? I slipped out of bed and checked his phone while he slept. It was now password protected, but his laptop wasn't. What I found in his search history chilled me. Life insurance payout spouse accident, hiking accidents Oregon, undetectable poisons. With sickening clarity, I understood. The cabin wasn't a reconciliation. It was a remote location where an accident could happen. Blake wasn't trying to save our marriage. He was plotting my death. My hands trembled as I documented his search history with my phone's camera. This wasn't just adultery and fraud anymore. It was potentially attempted murder. I closed his laptop, careful to leave it exactly as I'd found it, and returned to bed, lying rigid beside the stranger who was my husband. Dawn found me still awake, my mind racing through options. I called Diane the moment her office opened. I need to meet today. It's urgent. 2 hours later, she reviewed my evidence with a grim expression. The searches alone aren't conclusive, but combined with everything else, we need to involve the police. By afternoon, I'd filed a police report and obtained an emergency restraining order. Detective Wilson, a veteran officer specializing in domestic cases, took my statement with professional detachment. We'll investigate the searches and monitor his activity, she assured me. In the meantime, you shouldn't return home. Is there somewhere safe you can stay? My sister Jennifer offered her guest room without hesitation. That bastard, she muttered when I explained the situation. I always thought Blake was too perfect. With the restraining order in place and police notified, I felt marginally safer. But a new problem emerged. I needed access to our home to retrieve important documents and possessions, yet couldn't risk encountering Blake. I'll go with you, Jennifer volunteered. We'll wait until he's at work. The plan seemed solid until Blake texted, "Working from home today, missing you, still thinking about our weekend getaway." He knew I'd discovered something. His home presence was strategic, preventing me from retrieving anything without confrontation. I needed a distraction to get him out of the house. After consideration, I texted, "Can we meet for lunch? Need to talk." Suggesting a restaurant 40 minutes away would give Jennifer and me enough time to enter the house, grab essentials, and leave before he could return. "Sure," he responded immediately. "Noon at Riverside Grill?" Perfect. As expected, Blake left promptly at 11:20. Jennifer and I waited until his car disappeared before approaching our home. Using my key, we entered quickly, heading straight for the important documents in my office. "Hurry," Jennifer urged, keeping watch by the window. "Get what you need and let's go." I gathered my passport, birth certificate, business documents, and irreplaceable family photos. In our bedroom, I retrieved the jewelry my grandmother had left me. Everything else could be replaced. As I passed Blake's office, a notification sound emanated from his desktop computer. Without thinking, I glanced at the screen and froze. A text message preview had appeared from Jasmine. "Excited about our trip. She'll never figure it out, right?" The cabin trip wasn't intended for me at all. It was for them. The searches about accidents and poison must have been for some other purpose. Perhaps another aspect of his plan I hadn't yet uncovered. "Lillian, we need to go!" Jennifer called urgently. His car just turned onto the street. Panic surged. Blake had never intended to meet me for lunch. He'd seen through my ruse and circled back immediately. He's coming back, I hissed, rushing toward the front door. Too late. He's pulling into the driveway. We were trapped. If Blake discovered me taking documents, who knew how he might react? The restraining order wouldn't help if he decided to escalate to violence immediately. The back door, I decided, leading Jennifer through the kitchen, but as we reached it, the door handle turned. Someone was entering from the rear of the house. Jennifer's eyes widened in alarm. I thought you said he lives alone? He does, I whispered. The back door opened to reveal a woman, Jasmine, carrying grocery bags as if she belonged there. She froze upon seeing us, shock evident on her face. Who are you? She demanded. What are you doing in our house? Our house. The casual possessiveness in her voice ignited something in me. This was my house. The one I'd restored room by room, the one with my name on the deed, the one they'd leveraged for their affair. Before I could respond, the front door opened. Blake called out, Babe? You here already? I grabbed champagne for... He rounded the corner and stopped abruptly, faced with an impossible tableau. His wife, his sister-in-law, and his mistress, all standing in the kitchen he'd promised to remodel for me years ago. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Then my phone buzzed with an incoming text. From Blake's number. She'll never figure it out. A message clearly meant for Jasmine, sent to me by mistake. The text notification illuminated my phone screen for all to see. My sister glanced at it, then at me, her expression shifting from fear to indignation. Wrong number, dear, I said, holding Blake's gaze as I typed the response. His phone chimed. The color drained from his face as he checked the message, realization dawning that he'd just texted his secret to the very person he was hiding it from. Lillian, I can explain, he began. Let me help you, I interrupted, my voice eerily calm. You forged my signature on a home equity loan for $375,000. You used that money to buy a condo for your girlfriend. You charged a $4,300 Cartier purchase to our joint credit card, and you researched ways to make my death look accidental. Jasmine's head snapped toward Blake. What is she talking about? What death? She's confused, Blake stammered. Lillian, you're not thinking clearly. The police have your search history, I continued, along with evidence of identity theft and bank fraud. There's a restraining order against you, which you're violating right now. As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. Detective Wilson had promised to drive by periodically to ensure my safety during document retrieval. Your things will be on the lawn in an hour, I said, my voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through me. I've already changed the locks, the security system passwords, the garage door code. You can't just... I already have. I held up my phone displaying photos of his search history. Would you like me to forward these to Jasmine? To your parents? Your firm's partners? The sirens grew louder. Blake's expression shifted from denial to desperation. This is my house too, he protested weakly. Actually, it's not. Not anymore. I handed him a document from my folder, the preliminary filing for divorce on grounds of fraud and adultery. You'll be served officially tomorrow, but consider this a preview. Jennifer opened the front door as a police cruiser pulled up. Detective Wilson stepped out, hand resting casually on her holstered weapon. Everything okay, Mrs. Reynolds? She called. Mr. Reynolds was just leaving, I replied. Permanently. True to my word, Blake's belongings appeared on our front lawn precisely 1 hour later. Jennifer and I worked methodically, emptying his closet, boxing his precious architecture books, stacking his expensive electronics in neat piles. Neighbors watched from windows and porches, curiosity overcoming discretion. Jasmine had fled immediately after the police arrived. Blake, after a tense conversation with Detective Wilson, had departed with a warning: violate the restraining order again, and he'd be arrested. He returned as we finished, standing impotently beside his BMW as strangers examined his life's possessions spread across the yard. "You've made your point," he called. "Can we please talk about this like adults?" I didn't respond, instead tossing his monogrammed robe onto the growing pile. "This isn't fair," he tried again. "That loan was for us, for our future." "Our future?" I finally turned to face him. "Which part? The part where I die in a hiking accident? Or the part where you move your girlfriend into my house?" His face contorted. "You're twisting everything. I never—" "Save it for your attorney, Blake. You'll need a good one." 6 months later, the divorce was finalized. The bank's fraud investigation had provided irrefutable evidence of Blake's deception, resulting in criminal charges. Rather than risk trial, he accepted a plea deal, financial restitution, probation, and a permanent mark on his record. His architectural firm, unwilling to associate with scandal, asked for his resignation. The condo purchased with the fraudulent loan was sold to repay the bank. The remaining debt, nearly $60,000 after the sale, became Blake's sole responsibility. The marriage's dissolution left him with little beyond his BMW and the clothes on his back. As for me, I kept the house, purged of his presence and redecorated to my taste alone. My business thrived as clients, hearing fragments of my story, sought my expertise in transforming spaces after life's unexpected renovations. Standing in my newly designed living room, I realized Blake had unwittingly given me a gift. In attempting to destroy what we'd built, he had forced me to rebuild something stronger, a life designed entirely by my own hand, secured with the wisdom that comes from weathering betrayal and emerging intact. And I would never again share my foundation with someone who might undermine it. Whatever I built next would be on solid ground, with clear eyes and careful planning. After all, that's what good designers do.